Welcome all, welcome to this lecture of Object-Oriented Programming 1. Today we will continue with Unit 9, Binary IO, Recursion and Generics. Let me show the disclaimer, then I'll start the session. Okay, so let's start now. So in this recursion, what we will be doing is, let's see what is recursion, okay, in this unit. Basically, recursion is a technique, okay, that allows us to solve the problems that are difficult to program using simple loops. Okay. In some cases, it enables us to develop a natural, straightforward, and simple solution to a difficult problem. So what is a recursive method? Recursive method is a method that invokes itself. What? That invokes itself. This is very much important. Okay. So see, in order to find the factorial, this is a program that we have, okay, where we are using recursive factorial method. I'll show you what is a simple factorial method. See, if I have this public, static, long, let's say the method name is fact and int n is passed, okay. And inside this, what we'll do is we'll run a loop, okay. We'll be running a loop for int I equal to 1 I less than n, or we can say less than or equal to n, and I plus plus. And this for loop, what we'll do is we will basically have a result. Okay, so let's declare a result variable first. So see, this is a simple factorial method, okay, where we pass one value n, okay, and we have a variable factor, it's assigned to 1. Now we run the for loop. It starts from I equal to 1 to I less than equal to n, okay, and we multiply I with this factor. We say factor is equal to factor multiply equal to I, and in each equation what happens, I gets incremented and that I value gets multiplied with the factor, and the result is again stored inside factor. Initially if factor is 1 and I is also 1, we put it as f, then I, and now f after the multiplication. Okay, check this out. If we have f as starting in the f, we have f as 1, I as 1, so f into f is, f into I is 1. Okay, this is basically what this is, f into I. Okay, now we have what? Now f is 1, i's value will become 2, so 1 into 2 is what? It becomes 2. Similarly, f value is now 2, I value also becomes 2, and f into I is 4. Now f is 4, I is 3, 4 into 4 is 12. Similarly, f is 12 and I is, let's say, 4. So 4 into 12, 48. So this result gets back when the value of this n, when n is equal to, when we say that n is equal to 4. When this n is equal to 4, okay, this is the result that we get, which 48. Understand the simple factorial method? Yes. So now see, seeing at this table only you can understand, looking at this table only you can understand that how the factorial value is basically getting calculated, and that value is again used inside the loop. Okay, so this value gets over here, this value gets over here, this value gets over here, and in this way this value gets over here, right? So this is how basically the factorial method works. But now what we are doing is, this is a recursive factorial method. This is a recursive factorial method. Okay, why recursive? Because it calls itself. See, it's a factorial method which takes an int value, returns a long, and we take if n is equal to 0, if the number that is entered is 0, then we return 1. Else what do we return? We say n into whatever the n value is there, that into factorial of n minus 1. Okay, so if you take this formula, factorial formula, it works something like this. Is n into factorial of n minus 1, right? So if it is a 4, value 4, then it becomes 4 into becomes what? This is n into factorial n minus 1, right? So this call gets transferred as is equivalent to 4 into factorial of 3. 4 minus 1 is 3, right? Again, what happens is, this factorial call gets transferred into 3 into factorial call gets transferred into 3 into factorial what? 2. Again, this factorial call gets transferred into what? Is equal to 2 into factorial of 1. And this, again, this factorial call would get transferred into what? 1 into factorial of 0. What does this factorial of 0 return? See, if n is 0, if this n is 0, then this if returns 1, right? If returns 1. It's like here it is. So in the first iteration, first call it is 4 and into factorial of 3. This gets transferred to itself. The call gets transferred to itself. But then it becomes 3 into factorial of 2. Then again the call transfers, so it becomes 2 into factorial of 1. Again the call transfers, it becomes 1 into factorial of 0. And now this would start returning what? This factorial of 0 would return what? Would return the value as 1. So this will be equivalent to 1 into 1. Okay. So this 1 value, factorial of 0 transfers this becomes 1. This factorial of 0 returns 1. Right. So this becomes what? This becomes 1, which is transferred where? Is transferred over here. This one is transferred over here. Now, what happens? That is equivalent to 2 into 1, which is equivalent to what? Which is equivalent to 2. So now this 2 is transferred where? Over here. Okay, 2 is transferred over here. So now that becomes what? That becomes equal to 3 into 2, which is equivalent to 6. So this 6 gets transferred where? Over here. So that becomes equal to what? Equal to 4 into 6 is equal to 24. Okay, so that is actually 24, not 48. I think we had done some mistake in the last iteration. That becomes 24, not 48. So that's half of it. Okay. If we see the last example, then f I and then f into I is there. You can say f cross I is there, right? So in this f I and f into I, if we start with f as 1, I as 1, so f into I is 1, then this is 1, this is 2, so this becomes 2. Then this becomes 2 into this 3, 2 into 3 is 6. So this becomes 6 and this becomes 4. 6 into 4, 24. Yeah. So that's 24 only, not 48, that's 24. So if our n is 4, then 24 is the result of what? Of the factorial. And similarly here we get the same value when we are following this technique. Recursively calling the same method again and again by supplying one value as less and multiplying the result of that with the original n value. So it becomes like this. This goes like this. What? It becomes like 4 into 6 into or you can do something like this 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. This is what happens. Okay, this is what is happening. So that is factorial. Okay, you multiply each and every number starting from 1 with our next number up to n. That is factorial. But here what we are doing, here we are calling it recursively. Here we are calling the method recursively and we are calculating the factorial. So recursiveness is very much important to understand the process of calculating factorial. Okay. So, and there are lots of other different kinds of programs that can be done using a recursive method calls. Okay. So check this out. Here what we are doing is, here in this main method, first we are getting the input object, scanner object. Then we say enter a non-negative integer and we read a value and we pass that value, that n is passed directly to this factorial method, which calculates the factorial return. So we say factorial of n is this particular value. And here, what do we do? If n value becomes 0, then only you return 1, else you say n into factorial of n minus 1. What do you say? You say return n into factorial of n minus 1. Okay. So that is a factorial program. So see, this is how this another kind of explanation is given. When you call factorial 4 from method main, right, it says return 4 into factorial of 3. So this factorial of 3, the factorial of 4 was divided into these two steps. Now factorial of 3 gets divided into these two steps, saying return 3 into factorial of 2. Okay, factorial of 2 gets divided into these two steps, where you say return 2 into factorial of 1. Factorial 1 gets divided into these two steps, where you say return 1 into factorial of 0, where factorial 0 gets expanded into this one step, where you simply return 1. Okay, so this 1 gets returned over here, so this becomes 1 into 1, that 1 gets responded over here, so that becomes 2 into 1, that 2 into 1, 2, that 2 gets responded over here, so it becomes 3 into 2, 6, that 6 gets responded over here and becomes 6 into 4, 24. Okay. But then, so this is how it happens. And the stack goes on increasing like this. You have called factorial of 4. From factorial of 4, you are calling factorial of 3. Then you are calling factorial of 2 on top of it. Okay. Factorial of 3, then on top of it, you are calling factorial of 2, then factorial of 1, and then factorial of 0. So this is how the call stack goes on increasing. First you have called only one method, out of that you call second method, out of that you call third method, out of that you call fourth, and out of that you call fifth method. Okay. So see, this Fibonacci series is also a good one. This program can also be represented using recursion. Okay, Fibonacci series can also be used and be called, it can be created using recursion. Okay. So in some cases, recursion enables you to create an intuitive, straightforward, and simple solution to a problem. Okay. What happens is, in some cases, recursion allows us to create a straightforward and simple solution. So what is this Fibonacci series? Check this out. Fibonacci series adds up with the older two numbers. So this 0 plus 1 becomes what? This 0 plus 1 becomes addition of these two becomes 1. Then this 1 plus 1 becomes what? Addition of these two becomes 2. Then this 1 plus 2 becomes what? Addition of that becomes 3. Then this 2 plus 3 becomes what? Addition of that becomes 5. Again then 3 plus 5. So in this way you go on building up. Okay. And these are the indexes. These are indices. So how we can achieve this? Check this out. If you are calling Fibonacci of 4, right? Up to 4 you want Fibonacci, right? So when you say 4, Fibonacci of 4, you want up to the index 4. When I say Fibonacci of 8, I want the Fibonacci series up to 8, index 8. Okay, because it is starting from index 0 and goes on up to n. So when you say Fibonacci of n, Fibonacci of n, it means we are referring to any of this index, and we want the result as the resulting series up to that n. Suppose n is 8, then the series from start should 0 and it should go up to 21. Okay. If it is Fibonacci of 5, then it should go up to here. To start from 0 and it should go up to 5. Okay. So see, check this out. What we do over here, we say fib of 4, and this fib of 4 will do what? It will say return fib of 3 plus fib of 2. Now you have to do your addition, not multiplication. Okay, you have to do the addition. Fib of 3 plus fib of 2. So fib of 3 will call what? It will call return fib of 2 plus fib of 1, and fib of 2 will call what? Fib of 2 will call fib of 1 and fib of 0. So again see over here, fib of 2 also calls fib of 1 and fib of 0. Fib of 1 returns 1, fib of 0 returns 0. Right? So from here you can start that here this is the first value that is returned, then this is the second value, then again fib of 1 returns 1. So this is the third value. Okay, let me type it out over here. This is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2. So you can see on index 2 up to index 2, the values are 0, 1, 1. Okay. Similarly, on fib of 1, you say return 1. Okay, on fib of 1, you say return 1. Okay. Now see what happens over here. Okay, I think there is some issue. See, here 0 plus 1 becomes what? Here it becomes 1. And here it returns 1. So 1 plus 1 becomes what? This returns 2. Similarly, here we have 1 and 0. So 1 plus 0 becomes what? 1. So 1 plus 2 becomes what? This becomes 3. Okay. So 0, 1, 1, 2, 3. These all get displayed. 0 should will already display a 0. Then we'll start with this 1, then this 1, then this 2, and then this 3. In that way we will display. Okay. So that is how Fibonacci series works. Okay, try this out in your practical program. Try it out. Okay. Now, problem solving using recursion. How we do it? If you think recursively, you can solve many problems using recursion. Okay. We just now we saw factorial and Fibonacci series. We got two classic recursion examples. All recursion methods have following characteristics. The method is implemented using an if-else or switch statement that leads to different cases. Okay, and one or more base cases, the simplest case, are used to stop the recursion. And every recursion call reduces the original problem, bringing it to increasingly closer to a base case until it becomes that case. Okay, so you can see over here the factorial, if you are asking for factorial of 4, it goes up to factorial of 0, which returns 1. So it has reduced factorial of 4 up to factorial of 0. Then it goes up and returns those particular values. Okay. Similarly, consider the palindrome problem. So palindrome like this word mom, dad are palindromes, right? And uncle, aunt, these are not palindrome values. So the problem of checking whether a string is a palindrome or not, okay, whether a string is palindrome or not, it can be divided into sub-problems, two sub-problems. What? Check whether the first character and the last character of the string are equal. And ignore the two end characters and check whether the rest of the substring is a palindrome or not. You can do this and this way. Okay. Two sub-problems would be there. So see, this is how the palindrome call works. We say in this main method, we say is moon a palindrome? We give the string to is palindrome method. Okay, that will say what? False. That will return false. Okay. Similarly, we say is noon a palindrome? Obviously, this will return what? This will return true. This first call returned what? This first call returned false. The second call returned true. The first call returned false. The second call returned true. Okay. Similarly, the third one is we send A as a palindrome. So since it's a single statement, it returns as true. Then similarly, we say is A be a palindrome? That also returns what? That also returns true. And then we take if AB is palindrome, well, this returns what? This returns false. Okay. So check this out. What happens is when we send this string to is palindrome method, we check first its length. We say s dot length is less than or equal to 1. That's the base case. So we are reducing the length. Okay, and we are first comparing the first and last character, and then we are reducing the length one by one. Okay, we are removing those two characters from the string. So see, if the length is less than equal to 1, then we say return true. Else if s dot char at 0 is not equal to s dot char at length minus 1. So we are comparing two characters, character at 0th location and character at the length minus 1 location. Okay. So we say return false if it is not equal to. So we are comparing the first character and the last character. Okay. We are comparing the first character and the last character. So if it's like something like this, if the string is like ABBA, right? Then what happens? First, these two are compared. This A is represented by this char at 0, and this A is represented by this char at s dot char at length s of length minus 1. What is length? Length is 4. So 4 minus 1 is equal to 3. So if you see the index of the string inside the string, the index would be something like this. The index of this A is 0, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. Okay. We are comparing this 0th. We are comparing this 0th character and the last character. If those are not true, those are not same, then you return false. As simple as that. If those are same, right? Then what you do? You again go over here and you again send is palindrome. You again call is palindrome, and now also you pass the new string. What string you would pass? Now what you will do is you will extract this A, remove this A and this A out of this. Okay. Now what do? We check this out. What do we do over here is s dot substring. We pass a substring starting at location 1. And ending at length minus 1. So length is currently 4. So 4 minus is 3. So it should take what? That have to go up before that. It will exclude that third location and it will go from 1 and 2. 3 will be excluded. Right? 1 up to 3. So then it sends B and B. So next time B and B comes, what happens? If both are same, right? If both are same, if are not same, then it returns false. As simple as that. If they are not same, then it again sends. So now B and B, if we divide this, now there is no string only. So the length of the string is less than 1. Length becomes less than 1. So it does what? It basically returns at that time, returns true. If it reaches over here, it means the string was palindrome. If it reaches over here, it means the string is palindrome. If it reaches over here, it means the string was not palindrome. If it reaches over here, it means the string is yet to be explored. Okay, these 3 stages are there. Which one? The first one is when your string reaches at this location, when your index reaches at this location, when the length of the string is less than or equal to 1, it means it is a palindrome. If it reaches over here in the end, it means that it is not a palindrome because both the characters are not same. And if it reaches over here, it means we still have to explore by calling is palindrome again. Still have to explore. Okay. Understand how this palindrome works? Yes, this is very, very important program. Okay. Now, sometimes you can do what? You can find a solution to the original problem by defining a recursive function to a problem similar to the original problem. And this new method is called as recursive helper method. And the original problem can be solved by invoking the recursive helper method. Like the recursive is palindrome method is not efficient because it creates a new string for every recursive call. So that is the problem with this is palindrome method. It creates a new string for every call. So in order to avoid creating new strings, we can use low and high indices to indicate the range of the substring. Instead of passing the string itself, what we can do is we can pass the same string and low and high indices of the string. So at least new string will not be created. Okay, this low and high indices will be simply passed. Here what do we do? Check this out. Here we have this main method where we pass this moon, then this noon to his palindrome. When you pass this noon to his palindrome, what happens? This is palindrome gets called. That basically is this method. His palindrome. And there is another overloaded method. Here we only pass the string, but now here we call the second method in overloaded method where we pass the string. We pass the 0 as the starting index and length minus 1 as the ending index. So that string comes over here, and then we check if high is low, less than or equal to low, then both it is a palindrome. Else if character at low is not equal to character at high, then return false. It means it's not a palindrome. If it comes over here, if the control comes over here, it means we again need to check a substring. So we pass the same string, but we passed low plus 1 and high minus 1. We increase 1 for low and reduce 1 to high. As simple as that. Okay. So first what gets passed from here, when you are saying this call, first gets passed is ABBA, comma 0, comma, what is length? Length is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. So ABBA 0, comma 3 gets passed. Then second call is there. This one, when the second call is made, what gets passed to it? Yes, what gets passed to it? BB, okay. And not BB, the same string ABBA, okay. And now the low plus 1 has become, so 0 plus 1 is 1, And what was high? I was 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. So this gets passed. Understand? 0 becomes 1 and 3 becomes 2. Okay. And again in the end, when the next call gets passed, the third call gets passed. What does get passed to it? Same string, A, B, B, A, and low plus 1 is 1 plus 1 is 2, and high is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1. So what happens over here? High is less than or equal to low. That's the base case. That's the base case. So it returns true because now the string is same. It's a palindrome. The previous half and the next half of the string are same. So it's a palindrome. As simple as that. So over here in this method, this is palindrome is a helper method. It's a recursive helper method. What? It's a recursive helper. It's a helper method, but it's a recursive in nature. Okay. What is recursion? What's the difference between recursion and iteration? So in iteration we need a loop, whereas in recursion we don't need a loop. Right? Recursion is an alternate form of program control. It does the repetition without a loop. It does not need a loop. Okay. And the repetition of the loop body is controlled by the loop control structure. Okay. Repetition of the loop body is controlled by the loop control structure. This is in case of iteration. Okay. Whereas in recursion, what happens is method itself is called repeatedly. So a selection statement must be used to control whether to call the method recursively or not. So when we return something, it means we are stopping the call. When we don't return something and we call the method again, it means we are recursively calling it. Basically, recursion bears substantial overhead of method call. Each time the program calls a method, the system must allocate memory for all of the method's local variables and parameters. And this consumes considerable memory and requires extra time to manage the memory. That is the biggest problem of the recursion. It has got what? It has got a substantial overhead. Overhead in terms of computation. Okay. So basically any problem that can be solved recursively can be solved non-recursively with iterations. And recursion has some negative aspects, like it uses up too much time and too much memory. Examples are the directory size problem, the Tower of Hanoi problem, the fractal problem, which are rather difficult to solve using recursion. Basically used to solve, difficult to solve without using recursion, in fact. So here we have to anyhow use recursion. These are some problems where we have to anyhow use recursion. You cannot use iteration. Okay. So in order to take the decision whether to use recursion or iteration, should depend on the nature of the problem and your understanding of the problem that you are trying to solve. Okay. So as you go further, you will get to see programs that solve Tower of Hanoi problem using recursion. And this is many times asked in aptitude questions also. Okay. Now there is something called as tail recursion. What is tail recursion? Tail recursion is a recursive method. If the tail recursive method is efficient, it's a method which is efficient for reducing stack size. How do we do that? A recursive method is said to be tail recursive if there are no pending operations to be performed on return from a recursive call. For example, the recursive call is palindrome method is a tail recursive. Once you return something, there is no pending operation. It returns. So the whole stack returns one by one. All the calls in the stack start returning. So there are no pending operations after you return something. Okay. So see here recursive method A is there which invokes method A recursively. So that's kind of tail recursion. and recursive method B is there, which invokes method B recursively in between. See over here, what is there? Here we have some code. Check this out. In this method, suppose here we have some code. This is recursive method A, and this is some code, okay, inside this method. And in the end, we are invoking recursive method A again. So we are again calling it back. That's a recursive call. But if you see afterwards, there is no statement. There are no statements to be executed after this. So if when the control returns, it will simply exit that method, as simple as that. Okay. Whereas, so this is tail recursive. Whereas, if you see this method, in here, the recursive method in this, the recursive method is being called. So it has got some code, and then it calls the method recursively, and then again there is some code. What happens? When the control comes over here, it calls method B again recursively, and then when it returns, when the control returns back over here, it has to execute some code. So this is not tail recursion. Okay. But the examples till now we have seen, most of them were tail recursive, like the palindrome example. Okay. Recursive factorial is not a tail recursive. Check that out. If you see the recursive factorial, that is not a tail recursion. Okay, but because what happens is when it returns something, it calls some other thing. This calls another, this calls another. In that way, it goes ahead, right? So this recursive factorial method is not tail recursive because what happens is because there is a pending operation. Which operation? Multiplication operation to be performed on return from each recursive call. Okay. So tail recursion is desirable because the method ends when the last recursive call ends. So there is no need to store the intermediate calls in the stack. Compilers can optimize tail recursion to reduce stack size. That is why tail recursion is good. So see over here in Fibonacci series, what happens? You call this factorial 4, right? Control gets transferred. Now there is some more code to it where it recursively calls factorial 3. So this factorial 3 transfers the call. But when this particular call returns a value, that value has to be multiplied to this 4. So one multiplication operation is remaining over here, right? So you can see whenever this returns 1, right? So there is one multiplication operation. The result of that returns 1, right? There is a multiplication operation. Result of that returns 2. There is a multiplication operation. Result returns 6. Again there is a multiplication operation. Result returns 24, and that's it. Now it ends over here. Okay. So that was not a tail recursive solution. Whereas this was which one? Palindrome was. Okay. Now what if you want to do factorial using tail recursion, right? So how we do that? Check this out. You simply say return factorial of n comma 1. Okay, so you pass this factorial n, and you say check this out. Here we have two methods. One is factorial method, another is factorial n comma result. Okay. So what do? You say factorial n comma 1, and now this is auxiliary method, or we can say the helper method that we had done previously. In the same way, this is the helper kind of method where the n gets passed and the result gets passed. So we say if n is equal to 0, then return result. So if someone has entered n as directly equal to 0, then that gives you result 1. Okay. And if someone enters factorial, if that is not the case, then you simply call factorial of n minus 1. So now you pass, suppose last time you had passed 4 comma 1. So now you pass what? Now you pass 3 comma n into result. What is n? N is 4. So 4 into result was 1. Right? So you are in fact passing what? You are passing 3 comma 4. Next time what happens? Next time again you pass 2 comma, what is n? N is 3, right? So 3 into, what is the result? Result was 4. It becomes 3 into 4. In this way it goes ahead. Then it comes 1, right? And I think there's an issue. Before it is 4 comma 1, so what gets passed over here? Factorial of 3 comma 4 into 1 is 4. Again n is not equal to 0, so we pass n minus 1 is 2. And what is n into result? Result was 4. So 4 into 3, that is 12. Yes. Then again what happens? 2 comma 12 gets passed. Now you pass what? 2 minus 1 is 1. And now you have n. What is n? 2. 2 into 12 is 24. Now you have what? Now you have value as 0. So what gets passed? The result itself. What was it? 24. So 24 gets passed directly. So it goes over here, then it goes over here, and it goes over here, and from here it goes over here. That is how the factorial gets calculated. So this is a tail recursion of factorial. Okay, this is tail recursion of the factorial method, which is very much useful than non-tail recursion. Okay. So that's it. That is about recursion. Okay. Any doubts in this? Please do let me know. Abhishek is asking, if you do not want to user to enter the integer, then how to specify the number in the program itself? You can hard code it simply. That's it. If you don't want to user to enter it, you just simply hard code it. And Ravindra is asking, palindrome and inheritance are same. Okay. See Ravindra, palindrome. Let me show you what is the difference between both. Okay. Let me show the difference. So if you are asking about palindrome, so what is palindrome? Palindrome is nothing but a type of string. Okay. So if we say A, B, A, B, A, right? Or if you say something like this, support, or you say madam, right? These are what? These are kind of palindrome strings. It's not necessary that you have only 5 characters. You can have 4 characters, 3 characters also, like AA, ABBA, that is 4 characters, ACCA, BAAB, okay, can also be like ABA, XYX, right? All these are what? All these are palindromes. If you say AB, that is not, but if you say A and A, that is, or BB, that is, right? So using 6 characters, then it can be something like this: ABC, CBA. This is also palindrome. Okay. So these are the types of palindromes that you have. Okay. So palindrome is nothing but a type of string that you need to sometimes you need to do what? You sometimes you need to test many times. Okay. You might be using this palindrome in order to generate a password. You might even use it to compare some values of strings. Okay. So see, palindrome happens what is the advantage of palindrome? If a string is like this ABBA, right? Can you store only the half string inside the memory? Yes, that's beauty, right? You can even just store. You can say this is a what? This is a palindrome string, and you are just storing the half of the string and not the rest of the string. Okay. If it's a kind of even numbered string, you can store it, right? So you can do this kind of, you know, you can do this kind of business logic somewhere. And inheritance is a concept of inheritance is what? It's a concept of basically object-oriented programming. Both are different. Inheritance refers to classes. When you have a class, this is super class. Then you have a subclass, right? When subclass inherits from the parent class, right? That is called as inheritance. So whatever properties this superclass has, those properties also come in the subclass along with its own properties. Understand? That is inheritance. So both are totally different concepts. Do not understand this palindrome to be an object-oriented programming concept. No, that is not the case. Palindrome can also be used in procedural programming languages also. Basically, it can be used wherever we can use a method, okay, or a function call. Understand? Okay. And Abhishek, I think your problem is solved. You were asking how to specify the number in the program itself. That is to do the hard coding, right? Okay. Any other doubts, guys? Please do let me know. Yes? Okay, then I'll stop the recording. And if at all any other doubts, please do let me know.